You know how some say that they found God when they were orgasming during sex? Though they might, it's actually through the healing of the sacral chakra, which, funny enough, is located in the pelvic area. And this healing sparks a flame in many, leading them down a path of actually further self-healing and further self-discovery that sometimes ends with them discovering God. Alchemy, or in Arabic as we call it, kimia, is the act of turning something that is perhaps perceived as negative, low grade, think of elements, into something beautiful, into something valuable, powerful, and empowering. It is my own personal belief that many of us, human beings, tend to carry deep-seated wounds with regards to our own sexuality and our physical body, as well as how we perceive and deal with these aspects of ourselves. Many of these wounds are not even ours. They were actually sort of handed to us or passed down to us by other people who perhaps had their own issues with sex, sexuality, body image. I guess those who were in so much pain with regards to their own sexuality and body that they didn't know how to deal with this pain. So they end up handing it down to others, sort of as a mechanism of dealing with that pain. Think of misery loves company kind of thing. And so the cycle of unconsciousness, unfortunately, tends to continue on as we hold on to the pain that was handed to us by others, thinking it's ours, not knowing how to deal with it either, and then passing it down to other people, including loved ones, all because we carried the wounds of others unknowingly, thinking that they were ours, all because we did not know how to heal our pain. Having said all that, once you actually take the time and energy and learn how to tend to your sacral chakra, which is a sacred chakra, heal it, mend it, care for it, and give it the attention that it requires, a powerful transformation is initiated, which ultimately will lead one to discover or unearth their own sacred force of sexuality. And this happens when we sort of polish off our sacral chakra from the impacts, as well as from the traumas and the views that were negative, distorted, three-dimensional based or earthly based, heavily laden with shame, views of others, these views that were handed down to us by others, or perhaps views and traumas that we picked up from the society that we live in or belong to. And I guess you don't need me to tell you that almost always you will find an element of shame here. Rediscovering the gift of divine sex, as opposed to following along with what the world, the TV, our friends, family, and society tell us that sex is or should be. That requires healing of the sacral chakra, and that includes healing our earthly traumas with regards to sex that were probably most likely blocking us from experiencing our own divine sexual self. And this rediscovery, allow me to tell you, can lead one to learn more and more and more and more about themselves, which is, if you haven't experienced it yet, is so divinely delicious. Think of it as forming a pathway to your authentic self. And that pathway allows your authentic self, like a gateway, to easily find its way through to you, to connect with you, and to transform you from the inside out. Think of it as connecting with or discovering the more spiritual or the more elevated aspect of sex rather than the earthly sex that we have come to know. Discovering divine sex and then discovering the divine through sex. There are many characteristics of source energy that you will hear or read described. And perhaps two of the most prominent characteristics that you will read about or hear about are its rhythm and its flow of life. And both of these elements can be displayed in the act of sex. Sex has a rhythm. It is rhythmic. And it is through sex that life is created. Through it, life flows. Because this is an act that is so sacred, and an act of recognizing, demonstrating, honoring, and embodying oneness with another soul. And when two souls unite to honor their oneness, and in recognition of their oneness, this act can create life. An act powerful enough that it can create a gateway into unearthly higher dimensions, where another soul is then invited down into this realm through love. An act so powerful it can heal, but also an act that unfortunately historically humans have used against each other, have abused, have twisted and distorted and hid from one another. I sometimes wonder why sex, and in particular a woman who is empowered in her own sexuality, is so terribly frowned upon in so many cultures and so many religions. So much so that a woman who exudes, who dares to exude such sexual power, can be subject to anything from name calling, public shaming, bullying, and harassment and intimidation, to things such as imprisonment or even a sentence of death, as is the case in many cultures and religions across the globe. For what is a sexual woman but a whore to many? In reality, the awakened sexual woman is an extremely powerful creature, for she has healed generations upon generations of sexual trauma. Not only that, but she has the capacity to teach others how to do the same, thus creating an elevated vibration in humans like never before. This woman is known as the divine feminine, and we actually are living in times where the masculine needs the divine feminine to help him to awaken into his most authentic and powerful self. Perhaps this is why the divine feminine has been targeted throughout history, be it by calling her a witch and burning her alive, or calling her a whore and stoning her to death. For it is she that holds a godly power that transcends this realm, and it transcends its density. She has the power to elevate humanity. And though historically they have tried to eliminate her and they thought they had succeeded, her energy is actually making a resurgence right now, because her energy has lived on.